Rob Brown will give the next presentation on relationships, trust, intimacy, and oh yeah, data. Rob Brown has recently joined Informatica as a senior cloud architect. Informatica Corporation is the world's #1 independent provider of data integration software. Rob Brown has spent the better part of the last 20 years dedicated to building, running, developing, and selling data-driven applications with companies such as Oracle, Salesforce, and more.
Hello, my name is Rob Brown, and I've got about 25 years experience in building database-driven, data-driven really applications. Started my career at Oracle many years ago, and spent the last couple of years um, directing Salesforce's cloud platform group and Oracle's CX cloud platform group. And I'm going to be joining Informatica here very shortly. So I'm thrilled to be here. I've done some work with Rick in the past. I spoke at his SaaS and cloud universities, and we help folks understand the ramifications of moving from on-premise to cloud and what that does, both from a technology perspective and a business model perspective. And he asked me to come and talk to you all today with regard to business after Windows, which I just think is a pretty cool topic. So I'm thrilled to be here, and there's a couple to talk about. The first is relationships. The second is trust, and the third. And you might say, well, those don't really sound like technical topics. And you're probably right, but the truth is, they're really defining this new brand of commerce, this new brand of business in the cloud. So, why that is. If you think about the history of how people interact with providers, whether they're selling goods or services, people typically made a choice on who their provider was going to be based on the fact that there was some level of trust or some pre-existing relationship. And that's certainly true today. If you're looking for a doctor or a dentist and you have a family member that's a doctor or a dentist, there's obviously a high degree of trust, or there's a relationship there. If you've bought a car from a particular dealer or from a particular salesperson, there's a level of intimacy there. They know a lot about you. If you're working with a wealth management advisor, there's a high degree of intimacy there. They know a lot about your personal finances, your family finances, your goals and aspirations. So typically, the choice on providers has always been around trust or relationship, or by virtue of the fact that there's only one game in town, that you just simply didn't have a choice. It was a monopoly, and you got to take the utility provider that serves your neighborhood, or there's only one brain surgeon on the street, so you didn't have really a whole lot of choice there. And as human beings, I think we resist this idea of not having choice, and so we don't like to be cornered into this position. However, in modern times, with the advent of industry, the advent of Fortune 500 companies, scale has really dominated. The dominant provider in a product or service becomes a de facto. Boeing is the only airplane manufacturer in the United States, and they've dominated that industry since they gobbled up their competition over the last 10 or 15 years. I think it's a little bit longer than that. They bought Douglas, but just virtue of scale has dominated the landscape. And so what's happened is that relationships between provider and consumer have become more casual for these sort of large scale or commodity type of sales. And if you think about the Boeing example, I'm sure AT&T does a lot of business with Boeing, but the CEO of AT&T doesn't call the CEO of Boeing and say, hey, do you need some telecommunications? AT&T probably has a support team for Boeing that's hundreds, if not thousands of people strong in sales support and technology, and Boeing has probably hundreds of folks in procurement and line of business that interact with the AT&T crew. And those relationships probably haven't had years, probably even in most cases haven't even had months to manifest. So they're very casual. And let's talk about a little bit why that is. Number one, there's this proliferation of always connected customers. And they could be connected via tablet, via PC, via smartphone, but they're constantly connected. They constantly have ability to be in touch with coworkers and with prospects and with customers. In addition to that, products and services themselves are becoming connected. More and more organizations are providing self-service applications, and more businesses are popping up around sensory types of connected devices. Think about a house that can alert you to the fact that your garage door hasn't been closed, and you can close it from your smartphone. You think about the idea that your car can be beaming utilization data back to the manufacturer, who can in turn beam that to you on a cell phone. So the car, the house, aircraft, healthcare equipment, personal healthcare equipment. Nike now has shoes that will provide feedback to you on how you run and what types of things you should be doing to improve your speed. All these new connected devices are proliferating the landscape. And of course, with human and non-human users updating the database more and more frequently with more and more records, it's leading to big data. And then finally, the last big thing is, who loves to analyze data? Well, marketing folks. Marketing folks love data on how their products are being utilized, how consumers are interacting with their products, and their companies at large. So this whole idea of this casual relationship, low touch, is becoming extremely high touch in this new Internet of Things era that we're about to embark on. So let's talk about connected and social users. And kind of the whole idea behind Rick's conference is the idea that computers and PDAs are no longer personal. No longer is my only interaction with, a vendor via phone call or via an email. I have to access via Windows operating system to boot up my Outlook email client and go in and check and send and receive email. I can actually do that from a mobile device, and I can do it 24/7. And not only can I do that, I can post to Twitter, I can post to LinkedIn, I can post to Facebook, all kinds of message boards, communal types of organizations. So I have a constantly connected view of the world as a consumer. Because I'm got my mobile device with me and I'm not lugging around a big PC, I can spend a whole lot more time online. And of course, I can receive a lot more real-time information. Those shoes can be telling me in real time that, my stride is too short, it's too long, make suggestions to me in real time. And obviously, these huge volumes of data are being analyzed on the back end by marketers. And so they're constantly striving to improve their technology and get our attention. And so customers, as a function of this, have access to more data and more choices than they ever had before. So let's talk about the social devices a little bit. Again, we talked about it a second ago, PC is really now simply a device to access the cloud. PDA is the same thing, it's just a mobile device to access the cloud. So everybody's interconnected, and all applications now are becoming social. If we think about 10 years ago, how applications were all being self-service enabled, right? I could go in and self-service enable my checking account. I didn't have to call up a teller and have them access something on a VAX. I could go on the web and have access to my checking account. Well, all applications now are becoming social, and I think about this all the time. For example, I collaborated in real time on this presentation, and where in the old days I used to create a presentation or a file on my PC, bundle it up, zip it, and then email it off to somebody, and that'd be version 1. They'd provide feedback on it, send it back to me, that'd be version 2, and we'd have this back and forth, and it would be very linear, where now I have more of a real-time interaction. And think about, I do that all the time with Visios, I do that all the time with renderings, things of that nature. Musicians are collaborating in real time around the world over the web using all kinds of social applications. So this is a huge change in the fundamental fabric of the way we do business. And it really leads to this idea of posting versus messaging. Think about that. That gives the consumer a lot of power, because messaging, again, when I think about, you know, building a file, zipping it up, sending it to somebody, and then sending it back, and that process takes time. And that's a one-to-one type of scenario. When I post, or a one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-one, and that's usually a very controlled audience. It's people that I know. It's a community in which I work and do business. The idea of posting, however, becomes one to infinity, infinity to infinity, and infinity back to one. And that fundamentally changes the game, because now I can get more real-time feedback from more people, including a number of data points, which leads to better and better decision making. The truth is, as we all know, not what I say it is or what you say it is individually. It's what the critical mass says it is. And so the larger the audience, the more impact that we have on choice. So this idea, to me, as we move from personal computing and messaging to social, is posting, and that's a huge and fundamental game changer. So obviously that generates a lot of opportunity for the consumer. They have all these new choices, they can do all these new things, they can consume new services, they can leverage new technologies. But I'm a capitalist, and I'm really interested in looking at this from the perspective of a salesperson, from the perspective of a provider. So I want to figure out how providers of both goods and services can engage the consumer in much more impactful ways, much deeper and more impactful and more intimate ways, candidly. I want to see how we can leverage technology to return to true relationship selling. And I want to move away from pitching to prescribing. I think it's just a better business model. It's a trusted business model. And consumers are more likely to stay with you when you're prescribing rather than pitching. So I had a couple examples, and actually when I started this presentation, I had about 10. And the first time I ran through it, I realized that there was way too many. So I boiled it down to just a few. I've boiled it down to 4. And I'll start out with one that I had nothing to do with, but I think it's a really good example, and that's Virgin Airlines. And not long ago, Virgin Airlines in, I think it was Frankfurt or Heathrow, had a late flight, and they did a little experiment. They did several, but they did experiments with late flights or flights where they had issues. And they went into the social sphere, and they cross-referenced their passenger list with tweets and Facebook posts in the social sphere. And then what they did is they went in and read those posts. And a really good example came from a girl who'd been traveling across Europe. She was tired. She was in her early 20s. She was complaining about the fact that she was sitting in a coach sheet. It was very uncomfortable. So a customer service came up to her and offered her a pillow and a blanket for the balance of the last leg of her trip. Another passenger was on his way to go visit some wineries in Tuscany, and so they had a customer service representative walk up to him and give him a list of great wineries to visit while he was in the Tuscan region. And if you can imagine being tired and haggard at a hub, waiting to get on the next leg of a flight that's late, and a customer service representative walks up to you with a very, very well thought out gift, hands it to you, well, you're probably going to think much more highly of that airline than another one who doesn't. The next one, I did some work with a high-end retailer, apparel retailer, and I can't say who it is, but the idea was that we could do very, very specific one-to-one types of marketing campaigns based on social listening. And so the idea was to enable an individual sales representative, sales associate within the retailer to be able to listen for life events within his client base, and then be able to contact those clients and do a number of different services. So you can imagine the idea was that the sales pitch would sound like this. Hello, Mr. So-and-so. I see that on LinkedIn you just received a promotion. I wanted to call up and congratulate you on that and let you know that I'm here because I can imagine that the new job might have some wardrobe challenges for you. As you know, we work with several executives like yourself and gone out and looked at some of the trends on what we're selling to folks like that. And I've taken the time to build a little portal for you with some ideas of what I think might be appropriate for you. So I've tweeted, or I've texted you the address so that you can log into that portal. And you can look at some ideas, and you can get back to me at your earliest convenience, or I'll be happy to come to your office. And so that was the idea. It was very well received scenario, and I think now we could have really extended that socially, because we could have gone in and said, hey, I've created this portal for you, and you can push it into Facebook and have all your friends go in and kind of give you feedback on some of the different outfits that I've put together for you. But those are two really great examples of this new sort of social selling, leveraging the social sphere, leveraging listening and some of the listening tools out there to engage in a more intimate relationship, a better informed, more trusted relationship between provider and consumer. And then, of course, we've got the age-old bad ones. I don't know how often, and so I guess I'm venting a little bit, but I don't know how often I get hit up by cable TV companies that are, emailing me through Constant Contact or whatever email management software they use, pitching me in general categories a bunch of stuff that I probably already have or new packages that I've already subscribed to. It drives me bananas. And the worst one is, I've had a series of BMWs on lease, and I'm getting really frustrated with this these days. I'm getting more and more pitches for service specials for cars that I haven't owned or haven't leased, haven't driven in 5 or 6 years. And you think, BMW is a luxury brand, and they should be really catering to some sophisticated clientele, but their BMW Financial is not communicating with the dealer to let them know that I no longer lease the car that they want me to service at their facility. And I recognize that those are two different entities, BMW Financial, but you'd think BMW as a brand would really want to elevate the customer experience across all lines of the brand. And it drives me bananas. What's really frustrating to me is that I've gone back and told them that this is a problem, and it still continues. So, not a great customer experience. So what is the standard approach to make this new sort of business after Windows, trusted relationship approach work again? Well, anyone out there that's married knows the first thing, because your wife will always tell you that you just don't listen. And so it starts with listening. It starts with having listening tools like, Salesforce has a great one. There's a lot of them out there that you can go and you can monitor the web sphere. And the key thing here is to listen for life events. Now, obviously, in the version example, these people were tweeting because they were frustrated. That was really a customer service, customer interaction. Customer relations interaction, and these people were tweeting and posting on Facebook about a particular bad flight they're having. But if you're selling anything that's high ticket or high dollar, you really want to be listening for life events. For example, the Nordstrom's example of a promotion. And so you think of a life event, graduation from high school or college, getting married, getting your first job, first child, promotion, death in the family, career change. All of these things, moving from one town to another, all of these things prompt opportunity to engage with a customer and offer them your product or service. The second thing is obviously, listening for that life event, seeing that customer is out there looking for what you may, about the fact that they're looking for what you may have, or maybe they're talking about it, maybe they're just, maybe that it's just a life event. And then analyzing that customer. So analyzing that prospect, analyzing that particular human being contact, going in and looking through the web sphere and seeing who that contact is, finding out a little about their profile, correlating that with your own CRM system, your own service system, your own POS system, seeing what kind of purchases they've made with you, if any, in the past, seeing if they're connected on Facebook or on LinkedIn to any of your great customers, any of your good customers. And then the third thing is to approach that customer in a situationally appropriate manner. And if you think about this, in the retail example, it's great to have a sales associate call that prospect up and say, "Hey, congratulations on the promotion," so long as that sales associate has actually sold to that prospect before and they're connected on LinkedIn. If there is no pre-existing relationship, if there is no level of trust there, the next best thing you can do is to find a surrogate or an intermediary. So, if I'm selling footwear and I want to sell footwear to Mark Benioff, and I see a post on Twitter that, he just bought some sneakers and he's not happy with them, the first thing I'm going to do is not call him up directly. What I'll do is go into my Facebook or LinkedIn network and say, okay, who do I know that knows him? Who do I know that's athletic? Who do I know that I can call and say, hey, I noticed that your buddy Mark is complaining about his footwear. I've sold you a lot of good footwear. Could you give him a really good tweet and just say, hey man, go check out Rob and he's got some great shoes for you. So that's one example of the situationally appropriate manner. Another is just like the Virgin story where customer service reps walked up. So you really have to think through how you're going to approach. You don't want a guy who's just had a really bad service call to be approached by a sales rep who's going to pitch him new services. And then last, once you've decided the appropriate way to deliver that product or service, make sure that you deliver that customer service experience in an elevated way. Make sure that they get the best experience possible. And make sure too that there's a mechanism, either through an app or through a retweet or a posting capability, that a customer can rant and rave about what a great experience they had with you, how it was elevated, how much difference this has made in doing business with you. And then finally we get down to execution. And this is where, the dots meet the discs. So first of all, the first thing that you have to have is the ability to listen, be out there in the social sphere listening to this stuff at scale. And if you're in an organization that's, got any kind of size, this is not going to be something that can be managed with human beings. This is going to be something that has to be managed with tools. Like I said, Exact Target from Salesforce is a good one. I've seen implemented really well. But you have to have the ability to listen and collect the data. And if you think about that requires a staff. Both Cisco Systems, not the food makers, but Cisco Systems and Disney are two of the best at this. Both of them have these command centers for social listening where they have staffed about 10 or 15 people. And in Disney's particular case, they're listening for park visitors at their theme parks and interacting with them in real time. So if a customer is at a theme park and he says, the line at Space Mountain is too long, a customer service rep will approach that person right then and there and do something to remedy that situation. So, this is a multi-million-dollar investment just in staff and resource. And then you have to have the right tools. Next, obviously, once you have the data, it's got to be actionable. And so you have to have a way to interact with the prospect or customer. And then third, is there an app for that? Is there a way to automate that process so that so that it isn't so labor intensive? And it's often pertinent to have an application to facilitate that. So like the example I had with the clothier, Mr. Customer, I have some ideas. I took the time to put some ideas together for you in a portal, and here's the password. So, in that particular case, a lightweight content management system that IT doesn't have to go in and build something for somebody. You can have a sales associate just drag some some pallets onto a board and give access to their prospect. And so when we think about what's enabling all this, it's really enabling data to be converged. And if you think about this in classic terms, specialization and optimization have been the two ways to differentiate competitive advantage from one company to the next. And so historically, there's back office systems where I might exist as a customer, right? I've got 4 bank accounts at Wells Fargo, checking, a savings, a money market, and an investment account, right? And so, how can a wealth management advisor consolidate that data and have a 360-degree picture of me? But also in the CRM system and the customer servicing systems in the front office, how many times have I called for service? How many times have I been upset? How many times have I not had a response? How many times have I been pitched with a new service from the bank? And then finally, what we're seeing now is a proliferation of these new sort of situational applications. And if you think about those, traditionally we've had kind of a consolidation of those through ETL, through BI, where this data could be analyzed, and then there was a whole set of applications sitting on top of this that could go in and give us insight on how to best optimize processes, optimize customer experience, and then have unique process modeling for situational types of applications. And if you really think about that, what's interesting is the number of these applications that exist. The ERP war was won many years ago. They're big stack approach companies, Oracle, SAP, Infor, Great Plains. You sort of buy all of the components of that system and you have one. In recent years, there's been an explosion in customer-facing applications, CRM, customer service, customer care. But we all know that the opportunity to provide real value is in all the new application interfaces that we'll be able to make available to our customers. So self-service types of applications so that I can go to wellsfargo.com and find out what my balance is. Self-service applications where I can monitor, the correct utilization of my product, whether it's a car, whether it's a lawnmower, whether it's a refrigerator, the idea that these new apps will be built that will allow me to, monitor home security from my smartphone, monitor, turn on the water if I'm on vacation, check and make sure the kids are at school. That's where the opportunity is to really provide greater and greater levels of value in the customer experience. So how do we fix this? Think about some of these. They could be campaign specific, they should be gamification, event specific, mobile, line of business specific. So, the way that you provide customer care in South America is going to be a little bit different than the way you do it in North America, even though it's fundamentally the same application, the same business process. Create online communities for customers, social and portal integration, like I talked about, LinkedIn, Facebook, and then self-service environments. So how do you capture all this data and consolidate it? There's significant challenges to that. Most of these bespoke systems are developed by small vendors on a variety of different platforms and technologies. They require their own dedicated staff because some are written in PHP and some of them are written in ABAP. Some of them are just spreadsheets. The UI is inconsistent. It's a lot of point-to-point integration, a lot of APIs that have got to be sorted out. There's no data mastery, so you've got inconsistent data quality and synchronization, and that leads back to that fundamental problem that the consumer has, which is my BMW example, my cable TV example. How come, if you guys know me and love me as a customer, how come you guys can't get me straight as an individual? It makes me lose faith. So there's significant risk in terms of total cost of ownership, performance, and compliance and risk. If I'm giving my personal wealth information to a wealth management advisor, how do I know that that information is safe? How do I know that if I want to access that online, I'm going to get good performance? How are you going to keep me happy as a customer? So this is a quote that came from an architect at Toyota Corporation. It says, "My boss is fixated on rationalizing all the 4,500 legacy applications that we currently run behind our firewall. I worry about the 5,000 new ones that we're going to have to build to engage our dealers and their customers, and that data is going to be correctly structured, up to date, and available at the right time without data degradation." And I think this is the thing that keeps us all up as IT folks and as marketing folks. How do I know that Raj is Raj across all my different systems? How do I know that his phone number hasn't changed? How do I know that he's not driving a new car when I send him a special for a tune-up on the old one, right? How do I know that I didn't overbill him? So how do we consistently deliver a platform for citizen developers to build applications to engage customers? How do we deliver consistent performance and availability? How do we manage larger and larger volumes of data, right? How do we optimize the integration patterns between all the different systems? How do we ensure data integrity? And how do we do that at a manageable cost structure? And so the answer is really platform as a service. If you think about the traditional IT environment, you sort of had ERP, CRM, HRMS, these data silos, and then the line of business with all the other stuff that we talked about, and that's where the opportunity is, building all these apps for all these different situations. When software as a service came on, all of a sudden purchasing decisions became decentralized and shadow IT came up, started to poke its head into things. And so now, with a credit card, lines of business can go and provision all these different applications. I need content management for my sales associates so they can build portals to have their customers access and see all the different ideas they have for new types of outfits. Well, they're not going to submit an IT request to have that environment built. They'll just go out and provision it on, wherever. And so keeping the customer data synced across that and secure becomes more and more and more of a challenge. When you drop these SaaS providers out of the way and you look at an integrated platform as a service, then you get centralized data persistence. You get data mastered so that there's a golden record where when there's an update to CRM, it can cross-reference and update the service database as well. You can put rules in so that you're not to call a customer if there's a service request open, and you can build a myriad of new applications on top of this, so you can support that citizen developer and continue to roll out cool new innovative types of applications and constantly improve that customer experience so that you can build stronger relationships, so that you can build trust, and so that your customer can be really intimate with the brand. That's what we've got. Thank you for listening.